Hello, everybody, peeps. It's Sunday, 17th of April, 2022, Easter Sunday. So, in the spirit of the day, I have eaten an Easter egg, sat out in the sunshine, listening to the third or sixth, depending on your point of view, album by Underworld, Beaucoup Fish. Today, I am going to be talking about this record released, I think, in February 1999. Seems really, really strange to me that this album is 23 years old. I can remember it happening very vividly now, everything that was associated with it. Now, this was the first post-success album by Underworld, the first release since the Born Slippy single in 1996. Of course, when you're going to have your most successful big hit song, your first response, of course, is to take some time off. 1997 was a very, very quiet year for the band. After the end of the second toughest in the Infants tour, whatever it was called, I don't quite know. The band went very, very quiet indeed, and decided to follow up their big single from the film Trainspotting with a new song, which was going to be tied into another potentially very successful film. As it turned out, the film was Batman and Robin, the fourth of the Batman movies, the one with Bat Nipples, George Clooney, Uma Thurman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I predict a chill, or something, and lots of terrible, truly terrible puns that make the Terminator look like Mr. Bean. The director of Batman and Robin, which, by the way, I think his name is Joel Schumacher, said, I wanted to make a superhero movie, and I ended up making a Burger King commercial. And if that's the thing that they keep in the Blu-ray extra special features in the making of documentary, you can imagine that he said far worse in real life. I have seen the film Batman and Robin. I took my then girlfriend to the cinema to see it. I was so embarrassed. I mean, I know Batman wasn't cool in those days. It was basically Adam West and zip bang pow. But still, terrible, terrible movie. One of the very worst movies ever made. Although I think George Clooney actually was a brilliant Batman, everything else about the film was absolutely pig awful. And I don't mean to say that in a way to insult pigs, it was just awful. But it did have a fantastic soundtrack album. And one of the tracks that was on the soundtrack album was the first post-Born Slippy song by Underworld, Moaner. Here is the American 12-inch. Well, this might be the German 12-inch, actually. Yep, German 12-inch. It wasn't released in the UK. A 4-tracker of the album version of Moaner. And by the way, the album version of Moaner was for the soundtrack album, which is 10 minutes, 17 seconds. The short version, which was 4 minutes. The Relentless Legs mix, which is about 10 minutes long. And the long version. And the long version is the version that most Underworld fans know from the Beaucoup Fish album. Moaner is a song that the band still play live to this day, although I don't think they've played a show since Wembley Arena in 2019. And it's a kind of insistent, pounding, 7-minute epic. And like a great many Underworld tracks, including the ones that they play live to this day, you'd be really hard pressed to play an acoustic version of an Underworld song. Their idea of it having a chorus or a melody or a standard arrangement that would call itself a song is perhaps very, very generous. Underworld songs are designed for jumping around in small rooms with low ceilings and so on and so forth. There was also a pre-release promo 12-inch, a white label test pressing, single-sided, of the 7-minute version of Moaner. There are about 100 of these. I have got one with a sticker on here, which was sent out to club DJs and to people associated with the band and the label before release. So that's one of my Underworld white labels, is the Moaner 12-inch. I think there's about 100 of these, and this plays at 33 RPM, and it just plays the standard 7-minute version of the song. But yes, I am record collector scum. I will go and buy these things. So that was the first post-Born Slippy release by the band, the first release by the band when they'd become financially sustainable, successful, relatively secure, and they had a number of other offers on the table. I think they were asked to remix Mofo by U2, and they didn't complete that, although Larry Mullen did play drums on a later Underworld song. and instead they bunkered down in their studio in a high street, well, off the high street, in a suburban house in Romford, and worked their way through writing new material. And the way that they wrote new material, I think, was very different to the way a lot of bands write new material. And I kind of mentioned it in a previous episode, but they kind of constructed a song from lots and lots of individual parts. So you'd build maybe a great bass line, a great drum track, maybe a piano motif, and you'd play them together and you go, right, which bits work best with each other? Where do we put each one of these bits? And it's, assembling a song as a song made out of bricks, and the song is a house. When you take the individual component levels, the plumbing, the lighting, the electricity, the wiring, and so on and so forth, and you build those bits together, and then you've got an understanding of how all those songs fit together and the best arrangement for them, which is, I think, one of the reasons why Underworld songs have a longevity that maybe some other acts don't do, is that these songs are, or these tracks, are tested and tested and tested and played. So the exact note that you have that comes next is exactly and precisely the best one out of all the possible permutations that you can have. Some bands overdo that. I'm thinking specifically of Guns N' Roses' Chinese Democracy album, which is their only studio release in the past 31 years of original material. But other bands, they work a little bit quicker than that. And so Underworld took these songs, and then they kind of had a number of tracks that they could play. Now, the way that they often kind of finished songs, or the way is that they played them on stage, and they worked through iterations of the songs on stage, and they listened to what went well and what worked well with the crowd and what they felt about it. So in many respects, a live show was almost like a Grateful Dead experience. It was a jam band, and they were playing songs that they recognised that not necessarily everybody else recognised. There's a number of songs that Underworld played live that they played live once, twice, three times maybe. Nobody ever heard those songs after those particular performances and recordings, and then those songs disappeared, or maybe they reappeared on a box set 20 years later, and there is a Beaucoup Fish box set, which of course I will show you later on. But the other thing that they did, and there's a fascinating rehearsal from Romford on 23rd of June 1998, actually, that the band published during their Drift series in 2019, which was a 37, 38 minute kind of almost rehearsal for the Glastonbury performance, where the band played through a number of both their existing songs and build new songs in. And by the sound of it, when I was listening to the Romford rehearsal, the version of King of Snake that is on Beaucoup Fish is the version taken from that rehearsal. So it's fascinating to listen to it. I will post a link to it down there in the comments. The band played live there. I think they played their first show in Dublin at the Red Box. They played a number of other festival shows, including Glastonbury in 1998, which was broadcast on the radio. There's a copy of it which is circulating, which I'll post the links and all the comments to down there. They also, there's a number of mixing desk and soundboard recordings from the tour as the band are trying out, before the finalisation of the Beaucoup Fish album, the arrangements of the song, the versions of the songs, the placement of the songs, and deciding which parts to keep and which parts to lose. There's also a show from Belfort, there's one from Ghent, I Love Techno Festival, and there's also the Alexandra Palace show on the 1st of January 1999, where the band supported, or maybe played after, New Order on New Year's Eve. This t-shirt, by the way, is taken from the first time I saw Underworld, which was at the Manchester Arena on the 29th of December 1998. They came on at about 2:30 in the morning. They finished at about 4 o'clock. We got home at about 6. I went with my friend Andy and his partner Rachel. Andy died a couple of weeks ago. He was one of those guys that I thought I was going to know for the rest of my life, and I did. I just thought that the rest of my life and would have a few more decades in it, if that makes sense. And I miss him dearly. There's thousands of hours that we spent together that nobody else experienced, that now only live in me. And it's a great shame. But we went to see New Order together, went to see the Manic Street Preachers together. We went to see some terrible bands, and saw some of the best ones on the planet as well. Nine Inch Nails, for example, at Brixton, and he was part of my life for decades, and I'm going to miss him. I really am. But those moments that happen can never be taken away. We were there. It happened. We saw it. We felt it. It was real. And so the first time I saw Underworld was at the Manchester Evening News Arena, formerly known as the 9X. God knows what it's called these days, probably the Phones for You Arena or something. And they finished at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I remember we had to leave just as they were winding up Born Slippy. And so the first time I saw them, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, really, because what you were seeing was songs that were being, laid down like tracks, like the Wallace and Gromit one, where the guys lay the tracks down just before the train gets there. And that's what seeing Underworld live at that point was like. They were improvising live within a framework. And when I talk about the respective live album from that tour, I will go into more detail about it. But it was a euphoric experience as well, especially because I think the audience were very much, it was a celebration of the band's music. The first thing which came out after the radio broadcast of the Alexandra Palace show, which is also now been uploaded and is available, and I provided one of the sources for that, was a 5-track sampler. Here it is, the Beaucoup Fish sampler, which was pressed and distributed January 1999, and this has 5 tracks from the album presented out of sequence. So it has Cups, which is 10 seconds longer than the LP mix, Shudder and King of Snake, which is I think a few seconds shorter, Push Upstairs, which is the 7-inch mix, Bruce Lee, and the 7-minute 32 version of Moaner, the version which is on this 12-inch here and has become de facto the band's chosen mix of the track. This is the first promo which came out. It's listened to this a lot, listened to the Alexandra Palace broadcast, but the first single that came out from the album, released a little bit later, had its video shot at a special live set on a mountain or somewhere near Sydney in the wildlife, was Push Upstairs, and that got two CD releases. Here's CD 1. I've got 2 CD sets. CD 2, I hated 2 CD sets, but of course the more sales, the more time it spends in the charts. And this was also the time where the band did their first external remixes. So they got external third parties to remix, whereas Born Slippy had been remixed by, I think, Darren Price, who was part of the band's operation and DJ. So there were 2 versions here of Push Upstairs, and there were also a promo 12-inch here and a standard 12-inch here. Now the standard 12-inch and the promo 12-inch had the same running order, so that is the 434 LP mix, the large unit of Push Upstairs, which is 5.5 minutes, and on the B side, Roger S. Blue Plastic People mix. So the version on here on the promo 12-inch and the actual 12-inch are exactly the same. So if you've got one, you don't need the other. The CD here, CD 1, had the Plastic People mix and had an Adam Bayer remix, but it also had the 7-inch edit of Push Upstairs. This version, the CD single 2, had the large unit, which was 5 minutes long, and it also had a Darren Price remix and a non-album track called Please Help Me. And I had the good fortune, I think, of seeing the band play Please Help Me live on the opening night of the Beaucoup Fish tour at the Wolverhampton Civic Hall on the 2nd of March, just after the album had come out. Now there is also, by the way, a full-length mix of Push Upstairs, which is not commercially released, apart from on this compilation, Underworld 1992-2002. I think it's about 6.5 minutes long, and the LP mix and the 7-inch mix of Push Upstairs are edits, missing 2 minutes of music. This version is the version to get if you want to get the long version of Push Upstairs. And if you don't, why are you watching this? And if you are, watching this, hello, thanks for sticking around. The band also did some promotional stuff before the album came out. They did an interview CD. Here it is, and it's got a standard set of interviews, but it's also got an Underworld mix by band member Darren Emerson, a 50-minute mix, which features Underworld remixes and Underworld original tracks all melded together into a 50-minute set. This is a great listen, by the way. I really am quite baffled as to why this hasn't been commercially released on the Beaucoup Fish box set, but for some reason it wasn't. Maybe they couldn't license the Björk track or the Sven Bath track. I don't know, but nonetheless, it's a fabulous little release. If you get a chance to track it down, Underworld interview is track 2, or disc 2, and the Darren Emerson mix is track 1. Clearly, this is designed for radio programmers to be able to put this on the radio and go, here's an exclusive mix by Underworld, including songs from the new album, and also here's some interviews with them. But yeah, there you are, the Beaucoup Fish Darren Emerson remix. But the album itself got a release. I think it came out, in February, late February, maybe the 1st of March. Certainly I wasn't very familiar with the songs off the album that hadn't been played live before. And it was a 3rd album, and it took a brand new set of imagery. So all of the albums were designed by Tomato, which is an art collective which included the band members Rick Smith and Carl Hyde, alongside other members who worked with the band in a visual capacity, video designers, those type of things. So all the songs looked, act and felt like they'd all come and touched out of the same pan. So no matter what you look at from an Underworld perspective, you look at it and go, that looks like Underworld. And of course, it really, really did. This is the first pressing CD, which comes in a card sleeve, features a booklet. It also features a fold-out poster, which is very, very small indeed, but there it is. I don't know who would actually use that as a fold-out poster. There was also a book, which I have got in the other room, which I probably should dig out, but I haven't, which features a lot of graphic art from around about the same time of the band, and I will absolutely go and get that in a second if I can remember where I've put it. I think it's called Bareback Tomato Project, and it features a lot of the cover art from the Beaucoup Fish period, some of the Second Toughest periods, and leading into the Everything period. But Beaucoup Fish, the 3rd album, and I call it the 3rd album because we've all kind of forgotten the 2. Underneath the Radar, Change the Weather, and the Furrow album, Doop Doop, because they're not amazing. Not amazing. This is a vinyl edition of Beaucoup Fish, $14.99 from HMV, according to the price tag on there. Certainly an original copy of this is going to cost you considerably more than £14.99 now. It comes in a gatefold sleeve that replicates the CD experience. And this, like the other Underworld albums, is a double vinyl set, because whilst some bands were making albums for the CD era and they were bloating the albums with too many songs, too many mixes, too long, no editing. In fact, if anything, Underworld perhaps had too much music to release on a one CD. So the fact that they were able to edit down the very best of the albums to 77 minutes, such as this album, means that their albums don't feel fat and bloated in the way in which, for example, Boys for Pele or the Manics Know Your Enemy feels fat and bloated. Those albums feel like someone's taken some of the B-sides and shoved them into the album itself, whereas these albums, they really do feel like sonic soundscapes and excursions into a different world, where each one of the songs, and these are long songs, basically Underworld are kind of like the early Pink Floyd of the genre, in so much as they were often playing long, varied sets with no specific set list. They were playing new songs that sometimes never reappeared. They were playing different variations and different arrangements of each song depending upon how they felt, and none of the songs really fit into the conventional 3-minute pop song format. As well as, of course, losing a key member relatively early in their career. This is where I think Underworld really excelled, was on stage, but the albums were almost like live performances that were cut to vinyl and CD. So this album opens with the track Cups. Cups is a song that they haven't played live very much, apart from the bridge portion of Cups, which often was a bridge between, track 1 and Push Upstairs in live sets, which has got this great section where it just kind of, the song descends into a third part. So much like Juanita and Kite Lessons, A Dream of Love, from the opening track on side 1 of Second Toughest in the Infants, Cups is pretty much 2 or 3 songs all put together that kind of meld perfectly inside and outside of each other to become one cohesive whole. I love songs that do that, by the way, because you've suddenly got more sections of the songs, and in another world you go, right, so Cups is actually, there's an intro section which is about 3 minutes, there's a vocal which is about 3 minutes, there's a bridge section that goes all bleepy bloopy, and then the song reaches to a climax, and then as the song climaxes, it suddenly kind of like goes straight into Push Upstairs. There's a hard crescendo at the end of Cups, and then Push comes bolting straight out of the traps without a moment's hesitation. And actually, that's a great trick from a sequencing point of view, is to make the gap between the songs feel like a natural pause in one song, and it makes the whole thing feel like it's one song as opposed to 7 or 8 or 10 songs. And this one is an 11-song album. Track 2 is Push Upstairs, the song which I've mentioned before. I think it's one of my least favourite Underworld singles because it is very conventional. The riff is slightly off the beat, the lyric is slightly obtuse. It works very well, but it doesn't scream hit single, actually, although none of Underworld singles really scream hit single, apart from one I'm going to mention in a minute. But what it does do is that it works well as a second track on the album. The idea of Underworld having pop songs that you could do cover versions of is just really, really strange to me. There's something about the sound and the texture that makes the sound and texture and production of the song an integral part of the song itself, in a way that perhaps some of the Kraftwerk songs don't, even though the production on those Kraftwerk songs is immaculate. So we've got side 1 here on your OG vinyl issue, originally inner sleeves, ladies and jelly spoons of Cups and Push Upstairs. This copy, by the way, I think belongs to Daz, originally, because he's written 1 on there. But Jumbo is side 1, well, more correctly, side 2, track 1, 6 minutes, 58 seconds. Second single from the album. Jumbo is a very anti-single, if that makes sense. You listen to it and go, yeah, it's a great song, but at the same point you listen to it and go, doesn't sound like a single. None of these songs sound like singles. They sound like great album tracks. And that's probably either the sign that they're making great songs or great albums, or great songs full of great albums full of great songs. But Jumbo has a really interesting lyric. It's right, tiny wires in her ears is one of the main lines in there, which for me, I couldn't quite grasp that lyric until I suddenly understood the song is about listening to music to block out the reality. And a number of the songs on this album are interspersed, or perhaps have tiny intermissions and vocal samples. Beaucoup Fish takes its title from some chat by a fisherman talking about how the fishing is really, really good, and there's lots of fish in that particular pond where he's fishing. Beaucoup Fish, exactly. And then the next song on it, which is King of Snake, the third single from the album, has a lyric around, or more correctly, has a vocal sample which opens off the track, which is a guy that runs a late night gambling ring somewhere, where snakes fight and people drink sake and they get drunk and they gamble on the outcome of the snakes fighting to the death. And then King of Snake as a lyric and as a song, the next song on the album is bloody classic. I'll talk about King of Snake when I get to the single, I think. But it is one of the best Underworld songs of all time. And I saw them play it twice before it came out. So the first time I heard King of Snake was the radio broadcast from Glastonbury. But the first time I saw them play it was at Manchester. And they played an unusual version of the song because they're still working out how the song fits together. So they played the version that goes into, there's a demo track called Rajama, I think, or Rajamama, I think it's called, which sounds like it could have been actually one of the remixes of King of Snake. And there was a section which, on the live version, kind of doesn't exist on the studio recording, where everything drops out and Carl Hyde improvises, well, he wasn't improvising, a new melodic and vocal part around Christ You Should Have Seen Us, when the hair all wraps around us, and around just the moment where he's like almost kind of recalling the night out that you're having at the moment and going, God, you should have seen us. This was an incredible night, really was. And King of Snake, by the way, although it has a writing credit of Underworld, when it came out as a single, the writing credit was changed to reflect the contribution from Donna Summer's I Feel Love. The bass line from I Feel Love is the same bass line on King of Snake, and it is a pounding banger of a bass line. It really is. But you listen to it, you don't go, this is a band that are trying to follow a commercial success or trying to create a commercial big hitter. They're just going, we're going to make the best songs that we possibly can, and we hope to God that well, we more correctly, we trust our audience is going to come with us. And Beaucoup Fish is a natural evolution from Second Toughest in the Infants. I think it's still kind of fairly bold in terms of its songwriting and its choices. You wouldn't, by picking this up, get automatically think, yeah, they've sold out. You wouldn't at all. You really wouldn't. Although what I've noticed is actually this copy of the album has clearly been left out in the sun, because the blue on the front here is considerably brighter than the blue on the back. Maybe that's deliberate. I don't know. Let's check. Oh yes, it is deliberate. Okay, Humble Pie for me. Next track is Whinger, which takes its name from a remix of Cowgirl. Completely different track. Whinger is quite mellow, quite low key, almost a breather before you then get to Skim, which is side 3, album 2, and then Bruce Lee, which is the fourth and final single release from the album. Really strange, actually. I've never seen Underworld play Bruce Lee live. It's not the most amazing song they ever have, but it's pretty good on the album. It's got a strange and unusual lyric about live kids, suck the box. And I've seen them play an instrumental version of Bruce Lee with another track over the top of it. Quite bizarre, actually. Relatively recently, I think they did Bruce Lee and Ringrose together, but I've never actually seen them play Bruce Lee. And then we've got Kittens. Kittens is kind of like a follow-up to Cups. It's got the same kind of approach. It's a long, soaring instrumental with lots of breaks and dynamics and stop and starts and huge chords from heaven and all that kind of stuff. The end of the album, I think, kind of tails off a little, actually, I will say, because Push Downstairs, track 1, side D, Push Downstairs, is basically an ambient squashed mix of Push Upstairs. Then we have something like a Moaner, which the band played live a number of times before ending on Moaner, the song you all already know from that terrible, terrible Batman movie. We will never talk of that Batman movie again. Oh no, not at all. So Beaucoup Fish, I think, is a really solid, strong Underworld album. I really love this record. I have so many wonderful memories associated to this album and the live shows that go with it. I saw 3 shows. So I saw Manchester, London, and Wolverhampton Civic Hall, which I will quickly pick up in a moment. And my copy of it, when I bought it on CD, I was given a Beaucoup Fish carrier bag to take it home in. Nice bit of free advertising. And also had a flyer in there for the album, and a promo for Push Upstairs. It had a postcard which had the album release date, 1st of March 1999, limited edition special CD. And also, by the way, I had a flyer for the Wolverhampton Civic Hall show on Tuesday, 2nd of March, a cold, rainy Tuesday, with the band finishing at just gone 2 o'clock in the morning there. On the back of this, by the way, considerably cooler than Underworld, Beastie Boys at the Birmingham NEC. What a lovely flyer that is, actually. I might Instagram that later. But there you go. So I put this inside the LP sleeve. Second single from the album, now that we had an album proper, was Jumbo. And as I've mentioned before, Jumbo is a pretty solid single. This had third-party remixes, so Underworld were doing less and less of remixing their own songs, because it was more time spent writing their own material as opposed to remixing their own material, and they could pay other people to do it. So there was a remix by Francis Kavakian, producer that worked with Kraftwerk and Pet Shop Boys and a number of other tracks. The Jedi's Sugar Hit mix and the Future Shock Worlds Apart mix. And the Future Shock mix, by the way, is great. People kind of underrate some of the remixes which came from this period, but the band were fierce and releasing lots and lots of remixes. So Jumbo got 2 CD singles. This one here is the Edit, the Francis K mix, and one of the Jedi's electro dub mixes. This is the second CD, which features the Jedi Sugar Hit mix and the Future Shock Worlds Apart mix, by the way. And I'm going to recommend you listen to the Future Shock mix. There was also a 1-track promo CD single here, which has the edit of the track and it was released on the 17th of May 1999. I don't remember the 17th of May 1999. The band were clearly planning to have the album out and in the world for quite some time, because they weren't rushing the singles. You know, that was 3 months after the album had come out, so relying on that. And the band played a number of shows which were broadcast on radio, so Tilburg, Cologne, New York Hammerstein Ballroom, which has been uploaded to YouTube, which was filmed by a member of the band's crew, Pink Pop on the 18th of May, just after I think the album came out. Pink Pop became the bedrock for the Everything Everything Live album, which will get a separate episode, and then the last show of the tour properly, which I think was Fuji Rock on the 30th of July 1999. And they also released the third single from the album. But before I get to the third single, I also have to point out that either on this CD or on this CD, a full-length, unedited version of Jumbo was published, which runs an extra 2.5 minutes longer than the version that's on the Beaucoup Fish album. So effectively an Underworld 12-inch mix. They edited down both Push Upstairs and Jumbo and King of Snake for the LP, and longer versions do exist. I don't remember which one it is on. I suspect actually Jumbo, the long version, is on this, but if in any case you do need this, because it's got the long version of Push Upstairs on, and it's got a number of other tracks which aren't available on anything else, or at least weren't at the time. And 10 years later, in 2012, they did this 3 CD version, which brought us up to speed with what the band had been doing in the past 10 years, given that it only had 3 extra songs on. Not very much, which is not true at all, but there you have it. So Jumbo comes in a longer extended version. Now the third single from the album, the classic, which I think should be regarded now as one of the high water points of their career, again a song they play live to this day, the absolutely banging King of Snake. As I've mentioned before, King of Snake was played live all the way through '98, a year before the album came out, and it's played live to this day. I think they played it at the last show at Wembley. I don't really remember that now. This one had remixes falling out of their ears, actually, and a lot of remixes. So we've got 3 mixes of King of Snake on here. We've got the Barking mix, which is I think a standard 7-inch version, the Save Our Discos mix, and a Dave Clark remix. The Dave Clark remix, crap, by the way. We also have the Fatboy Slim mix on here. We have the Straight Mate mix, which is your standard 7-inch. The Barking mix is barking and a bit wonky. We've also got a Slam remix. Now that's not all the remixes, by the way. There are more to come. There's a promotional CD. Here it is, featuring Rick's Bungalow mix and the Rick's Bungalow edit. This is a definitive track. If you can get a hold of a copy of this or hear this, the Bungalow mix is an Underworld remix of an Underworld track. It's a completely different alternate version of King of Snake, and I really wish it was available somewhere other than a CDR. This is a banger. It's a great mix. Lock-in, a complete lock-in for the box set, except it wasn't on the box set. Thanks, guys. King of Snake also got a couple of other curious releases. Here is the 12-inch of King of Snake, featuring the LP mix, the Save Our Discos mix, and the Big Beat Bonkers Fatboy Slim remix of King of Snake. And of course you go, well, is that enough? No, it isn't, because there is an Italian-only 12-inch and CD single. I never managed to get a copy of the CD single, which features 3 unavailable elsewhere remixes of King of Snake. The Dino Lenny mix, the Fatboy Slim mix, which you've already got, the Coco Loto mix, and the Martinez Orchestra mix. Some of these are on the box set, but what I will say is these remixes are incredible. I think the Dino Lenny mix is really, really good. And again, I'll post links to those down there. But this was difficult to get and difficult to afford. Not many copies were imported into the UK, and even fewer of the CD than the 12-inch. I've never actually seen the CD. I've only ever seen this copy of this 12-inch. So for a long period of time, those Italian mixes of King of Snake were lost in time and space. And the final single from the album, Bruce Lee, back to the remix of Cups. Bruce Lee is a strange song it's not a conventional Underworld song at all. So the kind of things that you would think about for Underworld, the use of fast tempos, the use of chords from heaven, a very dynamic, shifting tempos, almost like prog techno. Not in here at all. Bruce Lee is a very rigid, very flat thing. It's the nearest thing Underworld ever got to the Beastie Boys, but without the flair, I think it's fair to say. It's got a couple of remixes on it as well. It's got the Micronauts remix, a Dobo Pret version, which is an alternate early demo by Rick, and it's got a remix by Salt City Orchestra's Vertical Bacon mix. There you go, in case you ever thought people were making these mixes up. No, I can confirm the Vertical Bacon mix does exist. It's got a genuine title, there it is, on the promo 12-inch. This is the promo 12-inch of Bruce Lee. It is, if I remember correctly, a limited quantity white label test pressing, so maybe 100 or so of these, which are floating around, which were sent to club DJs. Not all of them made it back, for example. And it also got a standard 12-inch mix where all 4 tracks were on one single 12-inch, or more correctly, just 2 of the tracks, the Micronauts mix and the Vertical Bacon mix of Cups, are on there, where they contribute different sides to different discs. So they're still, the standard Bruce Lee mix and the standard mix of Cups, the Underworld mix. If you want to get them on 12-inch, I'm afraid you can only get them on the promo. These are all remixes. It went not quiet because the band was still playing live. They were touring frequently. They took them on lots of TV shows. They played Glastonbury. They were very visible before they played their last show of the tour, which was a one song for MTV, I think, in Dublin in October 1999. And at that point, some point there, the band decided they were going to go back into the studio. They were going to go through some live recordings and prepare a live album and live DVD, which is the next episode, by the way. And then Darren Emerson left the band amicably, which I think I'll talk about in the next one. The album got a reissue in 2017. Here it is, a multi-disc set of Beaucoup Fish. Sadly, this copy's been slightly beaten up in storage, I'm afraid to say. But it has 4 discs on it. It follows the same process as the other deluxe editions of the albums, which is that it comes in a box. You take a hardback book out of the box. The hardback book there opens out as so, and you've got the CDs there, and you've got a thin book as well. So there's 4 CDs on the deluxe edition of the release. The standard studio album, some alternate studio tracks, and then 3 and 4 is remixes. And what a lot of remixes there are, ladies and jelly spoons. There's also a book here, which is effectively a continuation of the previous books that are in the previous reissues, featuring text, imagery, products from the Tomato group there, kind of harking back to the imagery which you would expect from the band. So there you have it. Now the tracks that you've got on CD 2 are a bunch of extra studio recordings that were not used for the final version of the album, and these include a Nifter, a demo of Bruce Lee, a track called Orange Bed, an early version of Skim, an early version of Jumbo, an early version of Push Upstairs, King of Snakes, Something Like a Mama, alongside the B-side, Please Help Me, a track called Rama Jamma, which I mentioned earlier, which is effectively a prototype of King of Snake, and a track called Yeah Plan, as well as remixes on part 1 and part 2, featuring lots of remixes that you've already heard. Now, if I was selecting the tracks for the 4 CDs, I maybe would put a disc of remixes on there, which oddly enough would replicate this, the Japanese 2-disc version of Beaucoup Fish that was released in late 1999, which had remixes of Push Upstairs, Jumbo, King of Snake, Bruce Lee and Cups on there. I'd also include the Bungalow mix of King of Snake. I'd also include on the 4th CD, the band started publishing to their website a number of alternate studio versions in the year 2000. So they published demos of King of Snake, something like a Mummer, revised version of Jam Scraper, Stagger, a track called Shout Twice, one called Man Loop, which is a revised version of Thing in a Book, and then also new versions or previously unreleased versions of Oik Oik, Bungalow with Stairs, which later became a solo track, and a song called Kippers. I'd put all those on CD4, so you'd have 2 CDs of unreleased material, but you have 1 CD of unreleased material instead on the 2017 version of the album. It has an essay about what it was like to be in, around, and near Underworld, and presumably to be on the planet Earth in the year 1999. My recollections of this are hazy. Artwork that had been prepared for T-shirts, badges, posters, all that type of thing. I did have a Beaucoup Fish T-shirt actually, but I wore it to bits, and I then sold it on eBay. So I could then go and take the money and go to Vegas for a weekend, which I now regret, but I don't, because I've been to Vegas and that was quite an experience. It's got lots of alternate kind of artwork from the album, which you would expect to see on singles, promos, things like that. For some reason, they're obsessed with, coloured shapes moving through various shades of blue at this period, and I'm not quite sure why, but there we are. And that was the 50-page book that comes with the album, alongside some alternate graphics and imagery and things, which again, it's probably very nice to sit and listen to the songs and look through these, but these don't have revisibility factor. They don't have, you don't want to revisit these books particularly often. They're very nice, they're very fancy, but they don't have you don't, once you consume them, you don't think, I definitely want to come back to and experience that. It's just not how these sets work. At the end of the day, it's all packaging, and what matters is the sound that's on the CD, and if it moves you, if it touches you, and if it helps you through your day. I mean, this album, Beaucoup Fish, I love this album. I think it's a really good Underworld album. I think I'd probably put it 4 in my list if I had to do an Underworld ranking, and I think number 1 would probably be Dub No Bass, and number 2 might be, let me think that one through. Number 2, actually, I'm really fond of the Barking album, which probably makes me a very sick puppy indeed, and also the 100 Days Off album. I'd probably put this tied equal with Second Toughest in the Infants, actually, at number 4. It's a great record, and it's probably only about 17p on Amazon if you only want to get the single CD version of it from 1999, because everyone was buying CDs. But there we are. The next episode, when I talk about Underworld, I am going to talk about the live album, Everything Everything, and the book, Bareback. I think Everything Everything is one of the best live albums of all time. And I will arm wrestle anybody that wants to disagree with me on that, because I am right and you are wrong. Well, I'm not. I'm not right about everything. I do think about some of the bands that I liked in some of the 90s, and perhaps some of the choices that I made with some people that were parts of my love life back then. And I think, no, I definitely didn't make every decision. I didn't get every decision absolutely right, but I was right about Underworld, and I was very, very lucky and privileged, I think, to be there. If I hadn't liked Underworld then, I'd be going into them now and I'd be like, why wasn't I paying attention then? And I do feel like that about The Wedding Present. It's like, why wasn't I paying attention? And sometimes you don't have an answer. But no, Beaucoup Fish by Underworld. Hard to believe this album is now 23 years old. It doesn't sound like it's 23 years old. And obviously, you go back 23 years before this came out, and that's before Nevermind the Bollocks came out. That's before, that's when, the Alan Parsons Project and Tales of Topographic Oceans and Stevie Wonder and War of the Worlds and all that shit. So to me, it just seems baffling that this album is 23 years old. It feels like yesterday. And sometimes that's the best thing that music ever does, isn't it? It feels like it's a time machine that takes you back or forward to a time that no longer exists. It's an echo of something, but sometimes that's as good as you can ever get. I love this album, rate it very, very highly. I hope you like Underworld, because if you don't, you've just spent 44 minutes watching me talk about a band you don't like. Well, you probably haven't. You probably kind of, change channel and watch something less boring instead. So, happy Easter. hope that you're all doing well and stuff. I've had my first negative COVID test for 2 weeks today, so I'm feeling pretty good. Not amazing, pretty good. I do still feel a little bit under the weather, and hopefully the next time I talk to you, I'll be feeling even better itself. This time next week, on Saturday, Record Store Day, and also I'm going to be seeing a member of Pink Floyd. So 2 members actually. I'm really looking forward to it. So stay beautiful. See you soon. All right. Bye.